I am just thrilled to introduce our next guest, Dr. James Neubrander. I think I've known him for well over a decade. He is one of my fave docs. Honestly, you're in for a real treat. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are, taking the time to talk with us today.
Well, thank you. I got the answers to every question you wanted, so that I could say it just the way you wanted me to say it. You did. This is just right straight from the heart. No, there's no written answers in here. It's good to be here. I'm honored to be able to. I'm honored that you would ask me. Thank you very much.
Well,
and it's great to be here.
Well, we love everything you do. We are so grateful in the community. Last night, for those that are watching, whenever you guys do watch this, but last night, you won a very special award, the Vanguard Award, and I know you were completely shocked. Your whole family flew in, and to honor a doctor like you is you're so well deserved with this award. So congratulations to that.
Thank you. It was a total surprise. I didn't know any of it. It's like all of a sudden I go in a room and there's all my colleagues and stuff in a dark room, and all of a sudden my eyes adjust, and then I can see a little bit, and they're holding like little iPhone or their phones up to take a picture, and what's this, and then I figured it out. And then after a few minutes of there being surprised and whatever, they said I needed to go back into the back room with Shannon to sign some papers that I forgot to sign, whatever that was. And I asked it, I said, oh, so I'm going to be going in the bedroom with Shannon, you know, does my wife know? And I looked around to see if she was even there, and I didn't see her. And they opened the door, and there's my wife and family and everybody else. It's like, okay, so they got me. So
they all flew in to surprise you.
I didn't expect any of it. So.
Well, we are just, as the community, just so grateful for doctors like you that don't give up, and you keep on searching, and you still keep on searching for answers to give our kiddos the best quality of life, and really that's what it's about. Well, today we're going to talk about a doctor's perspective. You know, you don't treat the diagnosis, you treat the patient. And so let's talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about where your practice is located, and you know, why you're really passionate about helping these kids, because I know it's not an easy thing to do sometimes.
Right. Well, you know, one of the answers that I've written is this is not an advertisement for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So my practice is in New Jersey. It's close to the Newark airport. So people have come right now. I think I've seen them from, I think the last count was 71 countries in most of the states in the union. And you know, so forget me. Doctors now, if they do it right in biomedical things, we can treat people without actually having to see them over and over and over. If I was a pediatrician, I need to see and touch a kid all the time. But if, you know, with what I do and other doctors like me, when they find a good one, find somebody who really knows, and then they can probably treat you. They may see you once or twice, you know, but they don't have to keep coming back. So it opens up the world. It's not like you got to be right here, and we have no doctor in our area. And again, I don't know how the rumor got out, but they said I was retiring. Well, I wish I was, but I'm not, because I work too hard. Excuse me. So anyhow, I come in at 5 in the morning, leave at 6 or 7 at night, and do it 6 days a week. And I'm tired, but I tell people often, my patients often, if I didn't love what I was doing, I would definitely be in prison to do that. Mm-hmm. But I love it, so I'm not in prison. So because I'm not in prison, and because I love it, even though it's hard, and it's getting harder all the time, and there's more and more kids, not fewer and fewer, it's like, I don't know what I would do if I retired. I just really don't. So.
Well, and how long have you been helping families? What year did you start?
Well,
in the autism community.
In the autism community. My first child with autism was before Dr. Baker and Pangborn and Bernie Rimland started, you know, the DAN organization. They had their first meeting, and that was in their minds that was birthed in 1995. Mm-hmm. I had seen my first child with autism in 1992, and I was told in medical school if we ever saw a child with autism, and medical school for me was Noah got off the boat with the animals, and then I was first generation after Noah. Really, it was graduated in 1975. So we were told if we saw anybody with autism to call all of our colleagues and bring them over, let them see the kid, because they'll never see another one. And at that time it was 1 in 10,000. And then the epidemic started in about 1985, 86, and then it just has gone like that. And right now CDC, I believe, says that by the year 2020 they're figuring it's going to be 1 in 44 kids.
Wow.
So it's not getting less, it's getting more, and it's not all due to the things that we used to think. Mercury, yes, mercury has a part of it, and you know, children being, there's all kinds of things. Okay, there's mercury, the vaccine issue, and the big fight about that. You know, the autoimmunity, the frequent infections. It's like the parents having a weak bridge, a wooden bridge. You know, you can drive a truck over a regular bridge and you're fine. But if you have a weak bridge, and we don't know the parents' genetics of what their weak, do they have a wooden bridge? Do they have an old wooden bridge? And what it is. So on some of those bridges, you can't drive hardly anything across. So it's the genetics plus the environment. And environment includes all those things I said. So it's not just mercury or vaccines or autoimmunity or infections. It's anything. So one of the first things I learned long before autism came into my life, that they said, genetics load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. And I believe that because we're getting a dirtier and dirtier, more toxic world than ever. I think there's now over 100,000 chemicals, and it could be many more, but you hear that 100,000 chemicals, they're only tested short term. When they find something, when companies find something that, well, they're chemists, they're biochemists, will make a product, let's say a pesticide or something. They'll make one, but then they make others that have isomers are just a little bit different. So then they put those away on the shelf, so to speak, and they promote this one. And when this one can be fine for years, and before they find out it might be associated with something, and so they have to get rid of that. Then they bring the other one out. It's just like it, a cousin, but it's not been able to be tested too. So it's this thing. Our world is getting more toxic. The food is there. You don't find any clean food anymore. Even organic, you might find it's clean, really clean compared, but it's not perfectly clean. We still have the air. The winds we get wind. We get stuff in our air from Asia and all. They get ours too. So it's just whatever. So the wind and the water, our oceans, obviously there's no climate change because that's fake news. The iceberg's melting and the polar bear's walking through the city. That's not real. And where they're talking about the oceans rising. I mean, we don't have good water anymore. We don't have good air anymore. Our food isn't contaminated no matter what. So, and it takes several generations for the genes to have enough. They kind of go downhill. So it's I'm probably the last generation. I'm 70, or I'll be 70 next month. So I'm probably the last generation where we had grandma and mom doing the cooking, and or great grandma and mom. As the generations go, there's less and less cooking, or people knowing how to cook or doing it, or we're too busy, so whatever. So as the genes get more and more weakened, and what happens, it passes through the mothers and the fathers, but it passes down. It takes about 2 or 3 generations, sometimes 4 generations, before the things really all accumulate. And some of that has to play a part. So our genes haven't changed. There's never been a genetic epidemic, but we're doing something to our environment. And the two have come together right now. So they're blaming glyphosate. I believe that's a problem. They're blaming heavy metals, and I believe that's a problem. Mercury's been taken out of vaccines, but now we have aluminum. So, and then any doctor who says anything against any say that there's 2 sides to the vaccines, they're pretty much marked. They're marked. Like there's a target on their back. Yeah. We as physicians right now, the physicians who do know things are scared to say anything, because pretty much when that happens, we're marked, and we can't do anything. They're taking licenses away. They're basically up before their boards, etc. It's almost like being in North Korea, where you say something against the dictator that you're pretty much a marked person. So there's so many things.
There's just so much controversy around everything.
So much controversy, the aluminum, everything. So in other words, it's not one thing. I am not a believer in one thing. I'm a believer in accumulation of multiple things. And then there's, they call them the autisms with an S, not autism. It has multiple different causes. What's the weak bridge? How weak the bridge was? What truck drove over the bridge? Was it a truck full of, you know, heavy metal, or was it a truck full of, you know, pick something, pesticide? I mean, it just
so
doesn't
much.
work like
and we're
that.
learning so much still too.
And we learn so much.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it is. So we have one brain. A brain can only do brain things. It can't do liver things, and it can't do heart things. It does brain things. And so a sick brain can give us everything from a stroke, which is not the group I'm working with, or autism, or ADD, or ADHD, or you name it. So all kinds of developmental disorders. So that's it. So we're living in a toxic world, and if we don't do something, it's only going to get worse. But when it's really scary to think, I mean, my grandchildren, they're living in this world where when they, you know, get old enough to have children, all right now in 2020, CDC is saying 1 in 40. They're estimating 1 in 40 or 44.
Wow.
Okay? And then it's only going to, unless we do something, it can't get any better. And how does it affect the economy? How does it affect our taxes? How does it affect us with what we need to do to help society in the next generation, our own generation, but the next one? And for our generation, my generation, to put our heads in the sand and kind of not look at it, and pass it on to the next generation and the next generation. And where they're having marches now, the young kids are smart enough to say, protect our world, you know, save the world that we're growing up in. That's what it's all about. And if we don't do something and get motivated to do something, fine. However, so I keep a low profile on what I do, because I'm not going to be able to help the kids. I've seen over 4,000 kids now with autism, and most of them improve moderately to moderately significant as long as they stay long enough to do it, because it takes 4 to 5 years, just like going to college. College takes 4 to 5 years before you get your diploma. You know, I can start seeing things in 6 weeks, even sooner than that, but I know, well, there's no doubt I can see certain things. From methyl B12 is one of those that I can see it immediately. And then it goes. Well, what happens is parents then start thinking, oh, things plateau. They do it for a while, then it plateaus, which is like saying, so we don't need it anymore. It's like saying if a person has diabetes and they have an ulcer on their leg, and so we say, do you have diabetes? No. And they say, let's check, and yes, you do. And we put them on insulin, and then the ulcer slowly closes down. Once it closes down, I don't need insulin anymore. Is not the right answer. We do. It hasn't plateaued. It's just you don't see the marker yet. And so I talk about a 6-year-old oak tree. When my kids come to me and I put them on methyl B12, they will see, the parents can document undeniably that the average is about 40 things they can see out of 155 possible. The average in 6 weeks is about 41, I think, is the median right now. It changes, but it's never less than 40. And they can see it immediately. But so it's not changing. I lost my thought because I'm getting old. What was my thought?
Well, no, you're basically saying, you know, if we're not making a difference and we're not changing, you know, the environment, we're not going to see these children get better and better, which leads me to my next question, actually. Right. My question is, you know, I hear so many families say that aren't in the autism world, really. They're just individuals that will come into me that will say, you know, we're not getting better at it's not an epidemic. We're not seeing more children with autism. We're just getting better at diagnosing. How do you respond to that?
It's really insulting to someone like with my generation, or even a next generation down. You're a couple down, but whatever. It's like saying, if I was there and my kid wasn't talking, you know, and you know, he's 2.5, 3, he's really not talking, he's not socially, you know, he's not really socially interacting with the other kids. He might parallel play, but not interacting, not looking them in the eyes. You know, when you go to hug them, they don't really hug you, they kind of turn aside. That's what they'll turn the sound. It's like almost hugging a telephone pole sometimes, you know. So I would turn to them, or my wife would say, do you think there's something wrong with, you know, our son? Oh, no. You know, no, everything's fine. You know, it's like we can't see. They come to the table, they don't eat right, they're picky, they don't do it. And for us to say,
we just missed all those.
We missed it.
Yeah.
Are we stupid? It's like saying we were stupid. So in other words, it's a way to cover up It's a way to cover up that we've missed, and basically take the blame, not the blame, but at least a finger to point that we as medicines and society and science didn't catch it and didn't know what to look for. So therefore now we can say, yeah, there's a, yes, some of our diagnostic tools are better. But that would catch a small percentage versus the kid who never talks and never,
Yeah, where did they go? Like they didn't just disappear off.
And they were not sitting in our classes at school, and they weren't hiding at home, because back then they still put the kids in school. We were, in America, we weren't trying to just hide them. Like in some of the countries, they won't put the kids in school so much nobody knows.
Yeah.
I won't name countries, but I have them in my practice, and so therefore we weren't doing that. The kids were in school, so yes, we had different kinds of illnesses, but we didn't have the autism with what autism is. So it's very insulting. So it really doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and I think that's important for families to hear, especially that really, first of all, for families that have the diagnosis, how do we answer that question? And then for those that are watching that maybe extended family or, maybe just interested in autism, we didn't miss these children. It wasn't, right now you hear 1 in 59 and they say, oh, well, we're just better at diagnosing them before we missed them. Or they say we overdiagnose. So how do you answer that question when somebody says, oh, well, everybody has a diagnosis of autism? When I always say, yeah, a lot of people do because they have autism.
Well, see, the thing is, what I was going to say is, what I can't do is I can't help anybody if I was out there, if I'm out there waving a flag and in all the marches. I'm not going to be able to help the 4,000 and hopefully 5,000 before I'm out of this to be able to improve. So the families bring me the children. Their children don't talk or don't talk appropriately. They might be affectionate. These kids are affectionate to own families, so it's an old idea that they have to be, not affectionate. They're affectionate, but they're not out there in the world. They can't do those things. So in other words, when they come to me and they say we're overdiagnosing, they don't come to me because I get the kids. They come with any diagnosis. Yeah. I'm treating the symptoms. I'm not treating a diagnosis. Okay. And so they come to me. So what parent doesn't know that their child isn't doing something really different and isn't keeping up with their age group, okay? They keep falling further and further behind their age group. The dangerous thing is, usually happens with men, not always, about 19 times out of 20, it's the women that see things different. Of course, they're probably with the child more, etc., but they're the ones that see their child is just a little bit different, okay? People get the devastating diagnosis, and dads usually are the ones that pull in and say, he's okay, I was slow too, and maybe that's true, maybe, whatever. But, it's the mothers that finally, and there comes a point, it's a little bit late oftentimes. If I get a kid in my practice that comes to me delayed between 2 and 3 years, I've got a really good chance of taking them very close to full recovery, if not full recovery. If they come after 3 or 4 or 5, I can get them very far along, but it's not, full recovery becomes less and less. The problem is it takes them, with all parents, with their pediatricians and their neurologists and just social media and everything else, it takes parents, grandparents, it takes, they'll do the regular stuff for maybe a year or 2 or 3 before they finally say what the pediatricians are saying, everything's going to be fine, or the neurologist, and it's not, and then the ABA and the different therapies with school and early intervention isn't working. So by the time they get there, the child's usually 4.5 to 5. Okay, that's probably where most of them come. That's a lot of time I've lost when I have a chance to do something. It's easier to weed your garden early before it has blossoms and makes a lot more seeds and everything else.
So we know that these parents just, they definitely know something's going on with their kiddos, and I think that's important for families to know about that gut instinct, right? Like if you feel that red flag, then you gotta follow, what's going on with that. So one of my last questions for you is, for those families out there right now that are just kind of feeling like, gosh, I know my doctor may or may not be listening to me, or maybe the specialist is kind of trying to tell me that the child's, delayed, but they can catch up, or maybe they're just an only child. What kind of advice do you have for them?
Well, advice is, again, weed your garden early. Get rid of the weeds before they multiply and grow, because it's pretty hard to do then. So start early. If the parents know their child better than anyone else. What I teach my parents is, you guys and gals are the ones that are with your child 24/7, 365. I've learned most of what I've learned from parents. I try to figure out why what they're saying is true and why it can't be true, because there's no study, because they know their child. They're there all the time, 24/7, 365. And just when you go to a doctor, he doesn't see it, or the child acts different. He goes to the doctor and one day he's acting really great. Oh, no problem if he's acting really bad. Oh, your kid's really bad, whatever. It has to do with how a person looks at the child, and they know their child. So the parents, when they know and suspect, that's not the time. If a person blows them off, the doctor needs to be, they don't need to leave their practice, but they can blow off what they hear, because they need to have their own hearing. They need to listen to their own ears and watch through their own eyes what they see. And if they listen to what they hear and see what they see in their own child, then there's enough of us out there. There's good ones and there's others that just are beginning this. Find somebody, if you really are worried, find somebody really competent. If it's just kind of like maybe, whatever, but find somebody who can do this for you. The M.A.P.S organization has doctors. Find somebody, you've probably heard other people on this, that you're, videoing and stuff. And again, this is not an advertisement for me, okay? So what I'm saying is find somebody who can help you and give you another opinion. And if that's not even good from somebody who says they know about the biological, biomedical, movement, that just because they attended a meeting or two and kind of, well, I bet I know more than nothing, but where are they? So if that doesn't go down to where you, the parent, really feel comfortable on the road you're going, it's your responsibility. God and Mother Nature gave you the child. They didn't give anybody else your child. Only you are responsible for your child. So, it's one thing to sit there and say, I did too much too soon and my child never had anything, or never developed in anything, and see he got better. It's better to have that in 10 years than it is to, I don't say this word, but I will hear, damn, it's too late. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't swear. But in this case, that emphasizes what I'm saying. No, it's like, damn, I wish we did it, or I wish we listened, I wish we did it. Because I will tell you, in my practice, and I can document this, I keep more records than anybody would want to see. And I can document without anybody being able to say that's an overstatement. I know that I can help, and good doctors like me can help at almost all the kids to some degree. Most in my clinic go moderately to significantly. It takes 4 to 5 years. You're not going to do it faster than college, with the exception if I get a kid somewhere between 2 and 3. It's never too early to start. 1.5 is fine. If I get a kid between 1.5 and 3, those kids, a tremendous percentage of those, by the time they get to kindergarten or preschool, there's nothing, you can't tell them any different than anybody else. There might be a little quirk, but how many neurotypical kids have a little quirk?
Exactly.
It goes like that. So find somebody, find them quick, and if that person isn't giving you answers, you might want certain answers. Just because they don't give you the answer you want doesn't mean they're wrong and you're right. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if somebody doesn't give you the answer you want, but they might be giving you really good solid advice from our arena of things, biomedical and what else, then that's fine. But if they're not, if they just don't seem to really know or understand or get it and cannot give you good solid answers based on good science, everything we do has some degree of science. None of us do anything that does not have some scientific reason. Most of the time, a lot of scientific reason, it's out there, but just because insurance companies won't pay for it and doctors can't do it in their practices, or just because it's not out there for everybody to see, or when you go to the different societies, the pediatric society, it's this Academy of Pediatrics and all, that's not what they're necessarily promoting from the lectures to the the doctors who go to get CMEs or what's written. So there we're pretty much a drug-oriented, drug medication-oriented. We're not talking about the other things that we can do. and things that are simple and make sense, and that great grandma and mom were doing. And so that's kind of how it goes. So I could be wrong, but you can tell if I'm wrong. Tell my 3,000 plus parents, close 80 some percent of 4,000. Tell those that have gone at least moderately to significantly, and many totally recovered. Tell them that these things we're saying doesn't work, and that the kid has a Ritalin deficiency.
Yeah.
Okay, or whatever. So that's it. I can look anybody in the eye. There's nobody anymore that can look me in the eye anywhere. And I'm going to keep a low profile. I have to, so that I can actually, I'm not going to sit there and walk on with waving flags, don't do this, don't do that, blah, blah, out there on the marches. Because if that happens, I can't take care of the kids. Because the person, I'm a warrior and I'm dedicated, but I'm not stupid enough to sit there and say me going and making a big enough noise that everybody has to come after would be beneficial to more people. Because what I can teach other doctors, what I can teach parents, and that goes, it's going to have to go from the ground swell up, instead of somebody trying to suddenly go against, whether it's big pharma or it's politics or lobbyists or anything else. That's not the way to win this war.
Well, and I think
it's the parents and people like you doing what you're doing, putting the message out. That's what it's all about, and the parents.
Well, and I think that this message is so important to hear from a doctor's perspective. What you think is really happening, and how the parents can make a difference by finding a doctor such as yourself. And I know you're so humble, and you're not here to promote yourself, but I can be the one to say, we are just so grateful for doctors like you. You have been really on the front lines, really from almost the beginning, when before Bernie even was out there talking about it. So, thank you so much. And again, it's about hope, finding the right doctor, and trying to figure out how that doctor can relate to your child and listen to you and listen to the advice of that doctor. You are a M.A.P.S doctor. M.A.P.S is medmaps.org. You guys can find out about that. That is the Medical Academy of Pediatric with Special Needs. And then what is your website?
www. That's all I can remember. I'm old. It's DR like Dr. DR and NEU, like Neubrander, my name, Neubrander. drneubrander.com with a letter U, not W.
Okay, drneubrander.com.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here today.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure.
And to everybody else watching, thank you guys. Until next time. Bye, guys.